Hello, welcome, dear souls. It's Bharat here again from Spirit Balance Podcast. And today, with a beautiful soul, his name is Akshay. He is a bestseller author of his book, Fearvana. He served with the Marines and he's an ultra runner and a really amazing soul. Welcome here with us, Akshay.
Thank you so much, Bharti. Always a pleasure, always an honor.
So nice. We met when you came here to the Darkness Retreat with us.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I didn't know about you very well. I just knew you wrote a book and you do some running. And then over the time, I got more and more into your work and I found it really fascinating. So do you like to share something about your life?
Sure. Yeah, I'll share a little bit about my journey and what brought me to the work I do now with Fearvana. You know, it kind of began when I moved to the United States at the age of 13. I was born in India, born to a good family, good life, nothing to really complain about. I mean, they weren't extremely wealthy at the time, but relative silver spoon in my mouth. I never experienced any struggle. But when I moved to the US, soon after moving here, I got very heavily into drugs, into alcohol, just a complete world of self-destruction. I used to cut myself and burn myself. I still have these scars on my arm to this day.
Why did you do that? I didn't know.
Why? No, I was in a very dark place. And, today I do things that are painful, but there's virtue in the pain that I pursue. Like, for example, I'm an ultra runner, right? I do things like just a few weeks ago during the quarantine, I ran 50 miles around a cul-de-sac. That's a painful experience. But there is virtue in that pain. You earn that pain. And there's a kind of purity to pain, which is what I learned over the years after coming out of this darkness. And I think back then I was seeking out that purity as a shortcut. And after moving to the US, I got into drugs and I was the guy in my group of friends to push the line, to push the edges. I'm still the guy pushing the edges, but now I do it in a positive way. But back then I was doing it in a very negative way to be the most extreme guy in my group. I was the one, they were like, dude, Akshay is crazy. Because I was the one, me and one other guy started doing the harder drugs first. He's no longer alive today. I lost 2 friends they overdosed, and it could have easily been me. So I was the guy doing all this crazy stuff, harder drugs and doing all this. Like my friends would watch as I would cut myself and they're like, oh my God, Akshay is crazy. Just this level of stupidity. And I did a lot of things that easily could have killed us. I mean, a lot of dangerous things. The way we would sometimes drive down the road, throwing knives, and just a lot of things that could have easily killed me. And thankfully, God knows how, but I made it out, and I got out of that world of drugs almost overnight after watching this movie, Black Hawk Down, which is it's a war movie based on a true story. And watching that movie changed my life. Basically, it planted the seed that was the trigger to recognize I'm living this very selfish and meaningless existence. And instead, when you join the military, separate from all the politics, right? But inside the military, you live for the good of the group. In the Marines, they don't care about your well-being. They care about the mission, and what matters is your men. And there's something tremendously beautiful about living your entire life for the good of the group. It's not about you, it's about everybody around you. And so watching this movie of seeing men sacrificing their lives for somebody else, it just hit me really hard and made me question this very worthless existence I was living. And so almost overnight, decided to join the Marines. It took me about 1.5 years to get in because I have a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in boot camp. But I fought my way in, got into the Marines. And after joining, and the Marines where I started to find the beauty in suffering, the beauty in adversity. Because, as I said, I was born with a pretty good life. But now in boot camp, you learn how to suffer. You learn how to struggle. You go through pain. You go through hardship. So I started to seek other ways to pursue my fear, to engage fear, all kinds of things from, volunteering in leper colonies, helping people in extreme poverty, to climbing mountains in the Himalayas, to cave diving, skydiving, just exploring fear, exploring the edges of the human experience in every capacity, within and without. And then in 2007, I was deployed to Iraq as an infantry non-commissioned officer, where one of my jobs out there was to walk in front of vehicles looking for bombs before they could be used to kill me and my fellow Marines. So dangerous job, but you learn to find peace even in the face of, well, you have to. So I kind of had to, and I did learn to find peace even in that chaos of war.
But did that not freak your parents out? I mean,
my parents struggled big time. It it's much harder on the people back home than it is us out there, because we're immersed in the experience. For them, it's the constant unknown. Every single day, they have to deal with the unknown of not knowing what's happening. Whereas we are immersed in it. Our consciousness is consumed by it, so it's much harder on the family back home.
And then also, I mean, their parents, try to protect you, put a beautiful place that you don't have to suffer, and you just choose that. And
I choose it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's been hard. I have been a nightmare of a child for my parents from the get-go. At first in a very negative way, between drinking and drugs, and I got caught, I've been arrested, got caught doing like you name it, so I was a very hard child. And then now, even though it's maybe positive, it's still dangerous things, it's things they have to, like even right after coming back from Iraq, within 1 month of coming back from Iraq, not even weeks, I went mountain climbing in the Himalayas, which is also dangerous, so it's not easy, it's not been an easy life for my parents, for sure.
Where is that coming from? Normally people who do drugs and do alcohol, there's something what they had experienced, or something that went wrong, or some pain,
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
You're right. To a big degree, it is often like maybe as an escape from a pain. And it has been. When I came back from the war, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, lost a friend in the war, lost junior Marines to suicide. I struggled with depression, struggled with severe alcoholism. I was at a point in my life drinking a bottle of vodka a day, So in that point, my alcoholism was as an escape from my demons, escape from my pain. But before that, when I came to the US, it wasn't an escape. It was more just seeking a rush, seeking a high. And I learned to, then I channeled that into a more positive way. So now, and as I said, I went skydiving, mountain climbing. So I'm still seeking that rush, seeking the high, but in a very empowering way. You're doing something that has virtue to that growth, virtue to that there's purpose, there's intention, not just a shortcut to a high, right? So I've experienced both edges of it. Like on the one hand, escaping the darkness, escaping the pain, escaping your struggle. On the other hand, just seeking a high, and both can consume you.
Okay, again, the question, where did it come from? Because, I mean, you didn't grow up and immediately decided to go to war. Before you even had that disorder, from the war, which is, I think, not a disorder. This is a normal reaction of a decent human being who has a big heart, or a heart, if you see injustice and war, of course you react and you're frustrated, but you had that before. So where do you think?
So where did I come from? Yeah, no, great question. So, to some degree, when I look back on my life, to some degree, I think there's perhaps some degree of the nature, like I was always, even when I was a kid, I used to love, I was very competitive in before moving to the US and getting into drugs. When I was in India growing up, I used to love playing rugby, love playing basketball, I was a runner, sprinter. And every time we played, I used to love competing. I used to love the fight. I loved the struggle of it. In Singapore, where I moved after India, I remember I used to run barefoot on rocks because I love testing myself, So some degree I had this element of seeking meaningful challenges, because I was very athletic from a young age. I used to always play sports in India and Singapore. In Singapore, after we came back from school, I was downstairs playing every day, playing cricket, playing tag, playing soccer, playing basketball, playing something, and being very physically fit, swimming, all kinds of stuff. And then obviously it got channeled negatively. But I think the birth of it really was when I started to join the Marines, because there I learned the beauty of real suffering. Like joining the Marines is hard. Boot camp is hard. And I mean, I remember in boot camp, you go through these moments, like we'd be out in the field suffering in the rains and just, miserable, no sleep, hungry, tired, miserable conditions. And I would tell my friends about what life was like in India, living in a good home, people working in your home and stuff. They're like, dude, why are you choosing to be here?
Right.
This sucks. But but when you taste that, there is so much beauty in it. There is absolute beauty in adversity. And when we seek only comfort, you are missing out on so much of life. And the problem is we live in a world today that feeds the mentality that that comfort is the place to be, that's seeking out. We're constantly trying to make our lives easier and easier and easier and easier. And easier is not better. And by any measure of growth or well-being, you can see the fact that collectively the human condition is only getting worse because our lives are getting easier, and easier is not better. We need struggle. And parents make this big mistake. You know, parents try to overprotect their kids because they think they're doing them a favor. You're not doing them a favor. You are absolutely not doing them a favor by trying to shelter them from pain, by sheltering them from struggle. You only grow through struggle. You get more confident by falling and learning how to get back up, literally and metaphorically, right? You have to struggle. And the Marines taught me that. When I came back from the Marines, I mean, it transformed me. It's a huge part of who I am today. I have this is like the Marine Corps symbol, the Iwo Jima flag here. You know, it's right behind me. It's an essence of who I am. It's one of my proudest things in my life is to serve in that institution, this group where, you know, again, it wasn't about me, it was the good of the group. And so the Marines is where I first started to learn the beauty of engaging adversity, and not just adversity for the sake of it. Like I said before, drugs, I used to cut myself, and that was pain. It was, it was hurt. It hurt, obviously, but now it's pain with purpose. It's pain for serving something greater than yourself. It's pain with a meaning. And so the Marines is what really planted that seed. And after that, it kept going further and further and further. And nature became my playground to explore the next spiritual awakening, because it's through suffering you attain that next awakening. You know, that path to enlightenment happens on the journey through struggle. I mean, you know, you run darkness retreats, right? Spending 7 days in darkness or however is not easy, right? Confronting the absolute essence of stillness, but it's only through confronting the struggle within that we find a new awakening.
Absolutely. Yes, I love what you say, that you came from that destruction part to a meaningful part, because that is thing. I mean, if you cut yourself as a kid, something you want to feel, right? You want to feel yourself, right? And so I think if you put it in a meaning, then it leads you somewhere instead of like destruction to use that in a good way. So if I sit and I chant 14 hours mantras, which is not easy, but I did in my life also, like doing the mala and just like, and you know, for weeks and months and years without a day break, then you also know what's suffering. So I know what you said was a purpose. So I'm wondering why you went so down without a purpose in the beginning. What was it? What was it? Pain in you driving you to that place? And because now you're transformed it, now you know how to use it.
You know, when I moved to the US, I was also just very lost. Like I had moved to 4 cities by the age of 13, you know, from Bangalore to Bombay to Singapore to Austin. So as a young kid moving around so much in different cultures, different countries, different worlds. And this was back before the internet was really a thing, right? So you can't just Google stuff to learn. We were kind of entering into new worlds. I mean, I remember when I moved to Texas, my friends in Singapore were like, dude, you're a brown guy. You're moving to Texas. They're going to hate you. So I thought I'm going to experience a lot of racism and stuff. But, you know, I didn't. I moved to Austin, very liberal city. Everybody was cool and chill and everything was, you know, no issues. So moving around a lot, I was very lost. And so I don't blame my friends. I take responsibility for my own behavior. But when you're a 13-year-old with no sense of direction, purpose, I mean, many 13-year-olds don't, and that's okay. But, you know, there's some kids who, like, when they're 7 years old, they know exactly what they want to be in life. That's great. Like, if you got that, awesome. Many people don't, right? I certainly wasn't that. And so moving around to 4 different cities, I got into a group of friends where, you know, like my parents have always asked me, what could we have done differently to prevent you have gone into drugs? And honestly, it wasn't their fault. Like I'm super close to my parents. I love my parents. They're great people. Couldn't have asked for better parents. But they didn't know, for example, rock climbing was a thing that people were doing. So I had a lot of energy that needed to be channeled. That's why now, to this day, right? Like I run ultras, I do crazy things that like running 50 miles around a cul-de-sac. So if that energy had been channeled in a healthy, like I always tell them, if I had gotten to a group of friends who were rock climbers or mountain climbers or ultra runners, I probably would have started down that path much earlier. I probably would have gone all into rock climbing and channeled that same addictive my mentality into rock climbing. But I didn't. I got into a group of friends. We started drinking and doing drugs. So I got consumed by that. And then I wanted to be the best at it, the most extreme at it. So it was me and one other guy that started going from marijuana and alcohol to harder drugs. And again, like I said, he's no longer alive today. And that could have easily been me. I mean, I was at a point in my life that I was ready to do any drug that came my way. I was searching for it. Thankfully, more did not come my way because I would have easily OD'd and probably died. But, you know, again, there's many, I don't know what it is about the universe, but there's many things, even as I look back, that it's sometimes a shocker that I even made it out.
Thank you that you're still being here with us.
Yeah, I'm grateful now. And now I realize that now, even when I was in Iraq, I heard from my staff sergeant that my vehicle drove over an active bomb And for some reason, it didn't explode. I don't know what that means. I don't know what, like, that's my staff sergeant told me that after the war. And so when I look at these things and I almost have even died from alcoholism after coming back from the war, drinking a bottle a day. I was on the verge of suicide. I was about to one day after 5-6 days of binge drinking, I woke up and I was about to cut my own wrists, So I've been on the cusp of death many times. And even in the Himalayas, I remember when I was glacier caving, I was within 10 to 20 seconds of being killed by a falling boulder. We were in an ice cave and we had to rush through this one danger area, like literally rushed through it and then got away from it. And like 10 seconds later, 20, maybe between, seconds later, this huge boulder came down there. 20 seconds earlier and I wouldn't be here today. So I've confronted my own mortality on many occasions. And so now when I look at my life, it's on me to do something meaningful with this life and to earn it. I don't have the right to waste it.
Absolutely. You don't have the right to waste it. Wow, that's
Exactly.
a great realization, right? Wow. And I think you have a lot of protection circles, as we call it in India, and a lot of divine forces. Are you chanting your parents some mantras, or that they're doing some pujas, or you have the feeling something comes from there to protecting your soul?
I have no idea. I don't know. I've wondered that a lot because when I see so much pain in the world from working with these young girls who are survivors of sex trafficking or working with former child soldiers in West Africa and seeing people in the hell on earth, I wonder why was I blessed? Why do I get to be here to live this life? I don't pretend to have all those answers. It's beyond my understanding. All I can say and what I do know is that whatever it is, I got to do something with this life that will be meaningful, that will help alleviate the human suffering of others and help transport people further along their journey and create a better life.
Maybe is that also that you felt the pain of others, that you're a very sensitive soul, and that from the beginning you felt, oh my gosh, there's a lot of suffering. And
yeah, it hits you. When I was in the darkness retreat, that was a big thing I struggled with and confronted when I was in there. I was, as I was journaling in the darkness retreat, and a lot of that stuff was confronting the reality that, how sometimes when people go through bad stuff, they'll say things like, why me? Why does this happen to me? Right. Mine was always the opposite. Anytime good would happen, I'd be like, why me? Why do I get this? Why do I deserve this? So, so feeling this guilt for living a good life. And in the darkness, I confronted a lot of why do I get to live this life? Why do I deserve success? Why do I deserve happiness when there's so many people in hell right now, So again, my answer is essentially is that I don't have the answer, but what I can do is at least make the most of it to help others. That's the best I can do.
And you do, actually. Now I know you better, and we did also, already connect a few times, and we did a YouTube video, and are really, really inspired by your honesty. Actually, I love honest souls. This is something I feel like, wow. And to talk about those things. So many people hiding about their masks, and not showing who they really are, and pretending, and you just putting out there. And then you wrote that book about and transforming it, and I'm sure this book is helping a lot of people, especially in this time. So please share about that process, how you came from all that pain and realizing, okay, now I have to put it in a book, and now it's not about me, I have to give it to the world.
So after coming back from the war, as I mentioned, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, struggled with depression and alcoholism. So after coming out of that moment where I was on the verge of suicide, I realized that was kind of rock bottom. I realized that something clearly needed to change. So, it wasn't like a smooth climb back up and everything was, rosy after that. It was a battle, but slowly but surely climbing back out and studying neuroscience, studying spirituality, studying psychology to initially just to heal myself. And as I started learning new things and figuring things out, it led me to these realizations on obviously I'm not the only person who suffered. Every human being goes through suffering in some capacity or the other. And so wanting to then share what I was learning to help others, because the biggest thing I've realized is the biggest flaw in the human condition, the biggest gap in our learnings that prevents us as a whole from living a better life is our negative relationship to suffering. So like, as an example, whenever I do talks around the world, anywhere you do in the world, I'll go in and sometimes not, but sometimes I'll ask them, I'll put words on the screen like fear, stress, anxiety, suffering, pain, adversity, struggle, and ask them who here sees these words and hears these words and think of them as positive. Anywhere in the world you do this, nobody thinks of these as positive words. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest problem in the human condition. And that's what I started to learn was that, look, Post-traumatic stress is not the same as post-traumatic stress disorder. So I can struggle with guilt, but guilt is not a bad emotion. It's just an emotion. Fear is not a bad emotion. It's just an emotion. But we live in a world that says fear is bad, stress is bad, anxiety is bad. These are not bad. They're just part of the human experience. They're more challenging. They're, of course, more challenging to deal with than, joy or calm or inner peace. But that's not a bad thing. It's part of the human condition. So as I was learning and realizing that our biggest flaw is the collective negative approach to the experience of human suffering, what I did with Fearvana, it's fear and nirvana, right? Two seemingly contradictory ideas that put together to realize that they're not contradictory, they're actually complementary. And fear and nirvana not only can coexist, they must coexist. And they're not opposites, they're not enemies. And that's the essence of Fearvana, is that the seemingly contradictory ideas that they can coexist. And fear itself is an access point to bliss. Struggle is an access point to bliss. So then to start sharing my knowledge and what I was learning, that to ultimately the core essence of Fearvana is to help people develop a positive relationship to the experience of pain and suffering, however it shows up, so that they can do three things with that. Find, live, and love their worthy struggle. I call it your worthy struggle. Your worthy struggle is your path in life. What is that path? What's your purpose? Why are you here? I call that your worthy struggle. So that's what the essence of Fearvana is about, is falling in love with pain, with struggle, so you can find, live, and love your worthy struggle.
And you still do that. I mean, what did you just told me before we recorded? You do a 24-hour run?
I'm planning a 24-hour run coming up next. A few weeks ago, I did a 50-mile run, 80 kilometers around a cul-de-sac. So it was basically going 1,000+ laps over and over and over again around this tiny little loop. When I was in India, I think it was last year, I did 80 miles around a 0.2-mile loop. When I was in Liberia, I ran just under a marathon a day for a week to help raise funds to build a school out there. So I do a lot of long distance running, as a vehicle to transcend suffering, to transcend and to attain a measure of enlightenment.
Okay, listen, Akshay, I can run an hour through the forest. Okay, that is okay. Okay, I can even with some pain make it to 1.5 hours. Okay, but 24-hour, tell me what's going on in your mind. I mean, the body will hurt. So
it's absolute suffering, but you do it you're not like, you wouldn't do these kind of things if you're not expecting like suffering. If you're expecting it to be easy, you're not running 50 miles or 24 hours, if you want easy. There's going to be suffering, and I want there to be suffering, because it's in the process of that suffering that you attain a momentary enlightenment where you can transcend that suffering and rise above it to keep moving forward. And to be very clear, I'm not designed to be a runner. I have flat feet. I have scoliosis. I have a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in boot camp, and essentially less oxygen flows through my blood, which is not ideal for anybody, let alone a long distance runner. I have another condition where my body can't absorb nutrients very well because the villi in my esophagus are all worn out. So I'm not like genetically engineered to be a runner. I'm not a fast runner. I'm not a great runner. To me, it's about the suffering. It's about going into those spaces and experiencing that moment where every part of you wants to quit. And I know it's going to be miserable when I got my next 24-hour run, because I've been through, like, even the 50-mile run. I was battling. I mean, you're going around the same loop over and over again. So not only is the physical torture, but the psychological torture, the spiritual torture. And you do these things, or I do these things because of the suffering, because the suffering teaches you how to transcend the suffering. And when and I believe self-transcendence, if I had to say, like, somebody once asked me, what is life about? If I had to summarize what life is about in one word, it'd be self-transcendence. Self-transcendence is the essence of a life well lived, and suffering is a training ground for self-transcendence.
Okay. So I know I also did a part of suffering, with the mantras and with going in the darkness and sitting a month in the cave and stuff like that. But 24-hour running, actually, this is huge. How do you feel after that?
I mean, after you're done, it's an incredible feeling, because you have this reward of knowing you just did something absolutely epic. Like, how many people run 24 hours, and there's this fulfilling, and I mean, I'm limping for a good day or two after that, but that it's like this earned pain. I earned the suffering and I love that. When you finish that, you have earned your right to suffer. You have earned your pain. And I love that feeling. It's obviously a relief. There's a huge sense of relief, like, thank God that misery is over. So there's that kind of relief. but it's an incredibly rewarding feeling. There's nothing more rewarding than confronting your demons, confronting the depths of suffering and transcending it. So and it doesn't have to be just running, right? It can be sitting in darkness. That's why I came into the darkness. It was a different kind of struggle. It was a different kind of suffering. But why I love physical ordeals as a vehicle for transcendence the most is because physical ordeals tap into mind, body, and spirit collectively. So if I'm meditating, I'm not pushing myself physically, right? And don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I meditate daily, but physical ordeals are the only vehicle, the only mechanism that tap into all the elements, right? That mind, body, and spirit, and they tap into all three of those. And you have to confront pain in every one of those areas. You'll confront physical pain, you'll confront mental pain, and you'll confront spiritual pain. And confronting all three of those, like pain in all three of those areas, allows you to transcend that pain in all three of those areas, and therefore attain some measure of enlightenment, some measure of a new awakening and a new insight and a new growth.
Wow. So there are a lot of people, which you just mentioned, who always look for the comfort zone, right? And are not open for new things. And what do you think would need to happen that they open up? I mean, they don't have to run 24 hours, but what does have to happen that they open up a little bit to that so that they can raise above their right now living consciousness? Yeah.
So like the inherent nature of struggle is that it sucks, it's hard. So it's natural to want to seek comfort because discomfort is hard. It's painful, it's miserable. Like I said, there's nothing inherently fun, quote unquote, about running for 24 hours. I know it's miserable, it's hard. But when you start stepping into it, you will find the rewards in it. And you realize that if you don't seek out, like I always like to say, if you don't seek out a worthy struggle will find you anyway. And the existential suffering of sitting in your comfort zone is far worse than the suffering you will experience by pursuing a worthy struggle. So the suffering that I experience from sitting around doing nothing with my life I would choose running 24 hours any day of the week versus the suffering that I experience sitting around doing absolutely nothing with my life, that I've gone through those moments. And look, I wasn't the kind of person born running 24 hours. As I said, I was born into a good life. I don't have to, I sought out suffering. I sought out to go into darkness, not just within, not just literally, but even without, to go to experience the depth of human suffering in war zones, in post-conflict zones, working with extreme poverty, volunteering in leper colonies, working with survivors of sex trafficking, seeing the darkness of the earth. I didn't have to, but confronting the edges of the human experience have brought me into a level of awakening that could not be more rewarding. And it's not easy. That's the inherent nature of discomfort. It's not easy. So how does someone do it if you're so wired to seek comfort? Start somewhere. It doesn't have to be a 24-hour run. That's why I'm saying, I wasn't born into this. I used to hate running anything. When I was a short distance runner. I used to only run 100 meters. Even 200 meters, I hated it. Hated it. I was terrified of everything. I was terrified of Ferris wheels when I was a kid. Not even roller coasters, but the Ferris wheel, which is absurd. It's not that scary, but I was terrified of that. I was scared of everything. So I didn't become this person overnight. One step at a time, I built my way into the fear, built my way into becoming the stronger and more resilient, more confident person. So when you do it, when you start somewhere, if you look at running, start with 1 mile, start with half a mile. Start with 1/10 of a mile, whatever it may be. I know this. I was reading this one story about this woman. I can't remember her name, but she was really overweight, and she started walking around her backyard. And she would struggle just from doing one tiny loop around her backyard. Started doing 1, then 2, then 3, and now she's an ultra runner. I can't remember her name in her story, but she's now an ultra runner. I can find it somewhere. But anyway, the point is, start somewhere. And the thing is, when you start, it will be hard. That's the nature of it. But when you push through it, you'll start to see the rewards in it. And you'll start to be like, you know what? This is awesome. Let me go a little bit further. Let me go a little bit further. Let me go a little bit further. And as you keep pushing that line further and further and further, you will start to find the rewards and the joy in confronting yourself. Because that's what you're ultimately doing. You're going to war with you. You're not fighting anybody else, whether you're competing in a race. You're ultimately going to war with you. And that battle, we're doing it anyway. We're doing it anyway. We are constantly in a state of conflict. That inner conflict is part of the human condition. It's part of the human condition. So you might as well seek out a worthy war. There's the wars happening. So go to war with yourself and do it consciously, do it with purpose, do it with intention. And when you win against yourself, when you win against your own demons, your own weakness, your own cowardness, that inner demon that we all have, when you win the battle against that and you transcend that self, the rewards from that, that's what living is all about. That's what living is all about.
Yes. Wow. So, and I mean, I feel you're also doing it in business. Yeah. You're very hardworking. It's not just a sport. And you actually own your life, right? With that. And I think that is what I feel is your process going through losing your life to own your life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Running a business has been in many ways even harder. I mean, writing my book, I used to avoid writing by running a marathon, just to avoid writing, because building a business, there's much more complexities to it. Running is simple, right? You run, you suffer, you'll get to the destination. In business, there's many tweaks to get to the destination. So it's not as a clear-cut path. But the rewards of it are, again, equally fulfilling, because in my business, when I get messages from people about how my work has helped them transform their life, or when I see reviews of the book on Amazon, I mean, that's what makes it worthwhile for me, seeing the impact it makes and the lives that it transforms. And of course, it provides me a financial freedom and life freedom to, I mean, I work from home, I can't complain. My life good, I'm very blessed. And obviously there's a lot more growth. And my business, I wouldn't say I'm the savviest entrepreneur in the world. I've made a lot of, like anything, you make a lot of mistakes. I mean, when I first started my business, there was no structure. I was just figuring out stuff out, complete mess. And now I've gotten much more systematized, much more structured, learning more about marketing, selling, how to build a business in my industry from wiser people than myself. And I'm still big about partnering, mentors, coaches. I mean, find someone who's done what you want to do and learn from them. I mean, there's no faster way to get shortcuts to success. I mean, you want a shortcut to success? Don't look for the easy path, but look, it's not about easy path, but there's a way to work smart and hard. You're going to have to suffer. You're going to have to work hard. Building a business is friggin' hard. There's anybody who told you otherwise is lying, right? Building a business is incredibly hard. But if you want to shortcut that and work smart, so you're not just working hard, find somebody who's done it and learn from them. And I'm blessed with people who are way smarter than me in that path to help me. And then I keep partnering with them, like you and me are partnering to create courses together to serve people in things you are really smart at, your brilliance, your wisdom, your experience. So we can partner on things that people who are smarter than, as everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, right? So you want to partner with people who are and create partnerships, mentors, coaches who are stronger than you in one area. What I'm really good at is I'm good at living the Fearvana message. I'm good at doing the crazy things like running the 24 hours. So I'm good at being the kind of face of brand. I'm good at public speaking. I like being the face of the brand, but I'm not necessarily good in many other areas of running the intricacies of the business. So I can partner with people who are better than that, and deliver value on that front to ultimately to deliver value and to serve. So.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, how you just signed up for the Darkness Retreat, and then I get to know you, and I get to know your book, and then you got on Amazon first bestseller, you got amazing, and now we soon will launch a course together. So it's so great.
It's exciting, yeah.
It's exciting. It's beautiful, and of course, I'm also learning about one thing. I'm writing about a book. I write a book already 6 years. Can you imagine?
Oh wow!
Oh my gosh! And everything is ready except the last chapter. And I have always reasons to not do it. And right now, when that Corona started, I also realized, oh my gosh, I'm facing also some resistances. And what you're saying goes so much in resonance with me, because I know this pain of doing something else. For me, it's easy now to meditate because I feel a lot of trance.
Yeah.
So once I feel like I should do the book, I just meditate a little bit. Okay, so or I go in the garden and do something I like.
Yeah. And that's a good point to address. Like I said, even I used to avoid writing by running a marathon. And here's the thing, writing a marathon wasn't easy, but it wasn't the worthy struggle I needed to do at the time. And this is where we have to be exercising conscious and awareness. Sometimes even the things that are positive, like if I'm running or working out or doing something, it might just be an escape from the thing I know I need to do. So I had to recognize finally that, look, that my real worthy struggle is sharing this book, this message. Like, imagine if I died never having shared Fearvana with the world, and like the lives that it's touched. And if I hadn't done that, that's that's on me. That's on me. So to your point about like you're more comfortable meditating. It might be challenging still, but you're more comfortable. That's like within your comfort zone. So actually stepping out and like really going to say, okay, you know what? My true worthy struggle is the book. And it's not going to be easy. There's nothing easy about it. But
Right.
that's the path. I mean, nothing rewarding happens easily.
Yes, that is amazing. And actually, I think also on another side, there's something why we have to do that. You know, the struggle, I think, is not just our own struggle. I think it's a consciousness struggle because now with your book, I mean, how many people are coming back from a war who are not getting to that point where you are now? I mean, who get stuck in drugs
Absolutely.
and alcohol and depression forever. Right.
Absolutely.
And, you know, sometimes I think this kind of resistances are okay, they're our own one part, but they're also a collective resistance, you know what I mean? So once you go that through, there's some opening in the
Yeah.
cosmos, which helps a lot of people to raise up. And so, wow. I mean, please tell the listeners about the survivor guilt. What is that? I mean, not many people heard about that. And it really touched me so deep because, wow, this to hear that and then I understood when you talked about that first time, but also how you healed that. And I think that is a very big thing for people to hear when they feel, oh, now they can do good in life and others don't. Yeah. And may
Yeah.
I share one thing?
Sure.
I had a good luck recently with something. And and I felt also guilty. And it was very strange. Instead of really feeling happy about it, I felt guilty that others don't have that good luck right now.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was not coming from a war. And there I thought about you actually. And I thought about the survivor guilt might be on different levels. You know, it
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
also survived on going on certain comfort zones and getting to a point where you feel more secure at different things. And you see other friends of yours don't do it. And you want to help them, but they choose to stay on a different page. So wow. And also things where you cannot do something about. It's just you have some good luck, and you
Yeah.
know you want that for others too. And wow, this is a big thing. Please tell about that.
Sure. Yeah. So as I said, I lost a friend in the war, and actually, he was this guy. Him and me got very close when we joined the Marines, when we were in the same unit together, and we became very close. We used to do everything together, run together, compete. We always have this kind of friendly competition. But I would always beat him by I'd beat him by a few points on the rifle range, or maybe a few seconds on the run. And so we were volunteering to go to Iraq every chance we could. We said we were going to go together. Twice the Marines told us we're going to war. Last minute they canceled it. And then one summer while I was vacationing in India, he finally found a unit to go with. And he was a good Marine, so he got promoted to corporal. And as a result, he was in a seat that got hit with a bomb, an IED, and he was killed. So I had always had this feeling that it should have been me that went there with him. And because I used to beat him by a few points, I should have gotten that promotion and I should have been in his seat. So he could have come back home to his fiance and his family, and I should have died instead of him. And then when I went to war, I came back and I didn't get shot. I didn't lose a limb. Nothing happened to me. So why do I get to come back when my friend died in war? And so a lot of veterans, but not just veterans, a lot of people who lose somebody, I ask that question, why me? Why do I get to live when they didn't? And everybody would tell me, don't feel guilty. Like rationally, I get it. I could have still gone to war with him and he could have still died and I could have still come back home. I'm not unaware, right? Rationally, I know you can't control where bullets fly. You can't control what happens in war. But emotionally, it doesn't change the fact. And everybody was saying you shouldn't feel guilty. And this is what most people do. We'll say, don't feel guilty. We always say, don't feel what you're feeling. Don't feel guilty. Don't worry. Don't be scared. Don't stress. We always tell people that, right? And we're doing it from a place of love, but it's not helping. So everybody was like, don't feel guilty. And finally, in my own healing, I kind of started to ignore all that advice and realize that, look, guilt is not a bad emotion.
Right.
It's a challenging emotion. But what is guilt? That guilt is an expression of love. Why was I guilty? Because I loved my brother. I cared. Guilt is just an expression of love. And it's not inherently bad. It's what we do with it that matters. So I ultimately learned to transform that guilt and find meaning in it. So for a long time, I had a picture of my friend up on the wall, and it said, this should have been you. Earn this life. Now, that's an intense thing to look at, but my guilt drove me. My guilt helped me finish my book. It helped me put my message out there and serve more people. So my guilt became my fuel. And only recently did I change it from this should have been you, earned this life, to honor his death, earned this life, because the guilt was going too far. Like anything, it works until it doesn't. But you have to confront it. You have to face that. It's not bad. There is no bad emotion. There are no bad experiences. There are only emotions. There are only experiences. And we get to decide what we do with them. So I found meaning in my guilt. And that was a big part of my transformation, was realizing, like I was touching on earlier, that post-traumatic stress does not mean post-traumatic stress disorder. Guilt is not inherently bad. It's what we do with it that matters.
Wow, it touches me very deeply. So you don't sometimes have the feeling your heart is exploding you had that feelings of, your heart chakra is so full of pain and love and wow.
Yeah, no, it hits you, it's not that life is grand and I'm always feeling happy these days. I go through my low moments. You feel as life does, as we all do, but I've just gotten better at transcending them and confronting them and learning how to work with them and use them as something good.
And what I feel, what I wish for you, if I may say, is a lot of self-love and to find a good way. So self-care and we need you, Akshay. So now actually, may I ask something about the alcoholism, please?
Sure.
I heard a lot of people saying that once they hit to be an alcoholic, they cannot come back, right? I mean, how do you handle that? Are you drinking sometimes, or are you completely finished?
I'm completely sober. You don't. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I think there are maybe some people who can learn to moderate it. Generally speaking, I think that people don't. You're either one edge or the extreme. Like I do think there are people who struggle with it and then they've learned to moderate it. But I'm not very good at moderation, as is pretty evident by everything I do. And so I just learned to channel that addiction into running long distances, into healthy things, into into purposeful things.
Right.
But you have to, there's many elements to the navigating addiction, but perhaps one of the biggest things is that you have to fill that void with something. You can't just stop drinking. You have to, if you're stopping drinking or drugs or whatever it may be, that void now has to be filled, because you were doing that for a reason. Firstly, you got to confront whatever pain you might have been running away from. So I was doing it to run away from all my demons, to avoid my survivors, all that stuff. Confronted that pain, found meaning in that pain. And then also, you're looking for an escape from life. So you gotta fill that void with something meaningful. That's why it's so important to have your worthy struggle. I mean, like Viktor Frankl says in Man's Search for Meaning, we are meaning-seeking creatures. We need meaning to our life. We need meaning to why we are here on this earth. So you got to fill that void with some purposeful challenge, some meaningful struggle. And that will, you can chant, like there's many extreme athletes. I'm not a huge fan of that word, but many extreme athletes who do things like, base jumping or extreme skiing or whatever. A lot of them have confronted addiction in the past. So they've learned to channel that addiction into something much more positive and empowering. But yes, that's kind of the essence of it. There's many elements to like navigating it, but you got to go into those spaces that you've avoided running, that you're running away from. So whatever pain you might be avoiding by drinking, by doing drugs. And that's hard. There's nothing easy about the journey, but life is hard. And the more you try to avoid it, the harder it becomes. The more you just embrace the struggle, the easier it becomes. If you're looking for easy, your life will be hard. If you seek out hard, your life will become easier. So embrace the struggle of it. And the Marines, we always used to say, embrace the suck. Because in the life in the Marines, whether you're in war, whether you're in training, it sucks. I mean, it's absolutely hard. There's nothing easy about it, but you fall in love with it. And that's life. That's the essence of it.
To do with surrender, and I'm thinking about some movies in India, the very hardcore yogis who do the tapas standing on one leg. I met them on the Mahakumbha Mela. One guy is standing for over 20 years, on one leg. Can you imagine? And he's standing on a swing. So sometimes he puts his second leg down, but he never sits down. He never lays down. Never, ever. Can you imagine? And they do this hardcore sadhana. And, it's amazing. And I asked him one day, how do you do that? And he's laughing at me like a little, a kid asking a grown-up. And I said, why are you choosing that? And he said, why are you choosing Maya? So So for him, and he said, we're getting so much cosmic energy. So something from the beginning, it's painful, but later you're getting so much bliss and so much energy. So for sure, there's something in it. I mean, those yogis in this level, they're also getting more, they're getting not just on that level, they're getting other levels as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is, this is something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Wow.
what it's, seeking that more meaningful struggle, seeking your worthy struggle is what makes life worth living.
Right. Thank you, Akshay. So how can people get in contact with you and what are you offering? Please tell about that.
Yeah, you can find me at fearvana.com. And, I have different tools and trainings on how to help people embrace the struggle of life and ultimately create a life of, like the words I like to say, is boundless bliss. How do you live a life of greater bliss? And then the book is available on Amazon in Kindle, Audible, and paperback. And 100% of the profits go to charity. We've supported many amazing charities, from the survivors of sex trafficking to former child soldiers in West Africa and people in kind of extremes of the human condition. And so, yeah, you can find the book on Amazon and find me at fearvana.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bharti. Appreciate you.
So beautiful to speak with you. Always learning so much. Thank you. And I'm sure we do another podcast in some time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we are very happy if you want to forward that podcast and contact to Akshay, get on his mailing list. And yeah, see and hear you soon. Take care.